Meeting for February 13th, 2025. At this time, we're going to take up DI1, the 2025 agenda deadlines. Mr. Manager? Hello? No, because I need a full board for the other items. Why do you need time? Okay, may I have a motion to defer DI1?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Defer until what date, Mr. Manager? Deferred until February 27th.
What do we defer?
The agenda item deadlines till February 27th. We can take up RE1. Commissioner, that's your district. Vice Chair. It's a mitigation. RE1.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Jorge Gutman, 600 Brickell Avenue.
Hold on a sec. We go with the city first and then you.
Sure.
Good afternoon. Trelana Haynes, Interim Director of Code Compliance.
Good
Can't hear me? I'm sorry. Trelana Haynes, Interim Director of Code Compliance. RU1 is a mitigation request for 1427 Northwest 1st Street in D3. The property was cited for illegal additions, failure to maintain exterior, failure to main lot. The case was opened December 16, 2020. The hearing was November 11, 2021. They complied August 13, 2024. The lien ran for 917 days. Total accrued is $229,250, and the offer is $10,000.
$229,250.
Yes. And the offer is $10,000, which is 4.3%.
How much is it in percentage?
4.3%.
Yeah, I thought it was under 5.
Sir?
I thought it was under 5.
Sir?
Yes.
Good afternoon. Jorge Gutman, 600 Brickell, Suite 3500, Miami 33131. I have the privilege of representing TIG Investment Group LLC, which is the record owner of the property as of June 26, 2023. TIG Investment Property is planning to build 11 much-needed workforce units in the property. I'll come back to the amount that we offered, but first, please indulge me with a little bit of the history about what happened here. The prior owner of the property was the estate of Alfredo Chacon. In November of 2021, there was a violation issued for work without a permit and failure to maintain the exterior of commercial and residential premises. It gave the owner then until February of 2022 to comply. And the failure, of course, resulted in $250 per day. At the time that we bought the property, in June of 2023, more than 271 days had passed. Now, in January of 2023, prior to my client becoming the record owner, the property was deemed an unsafe structure. The former owner did not do anything to correct any of the violations or the unsafe structure order. What did we do when we came in? We bought the property on June 26, 2023. On June 28, 2023, 2 days after buying the property, we served 7 notices of eviction to the squatters that were in the property. They ignored those notices. Between September 7, which is just a couple of months later, and October 2nd, we evicted every single one of those squatters. In July, so shortly after we bought the property, in July 7th of 2023, we applied for a demolition permit, even before we got the squatters out. So what I'm trying to show here is that my client has moved with the utmost alacrity in trying to resolve a situation that they did not create. There were delays by the city in approving the permit. The permit was approved in December of 2023. During the demolition, a sidewalk was damaged, and by March 1st, we were already applying, March 1st, 2024, we're now talking, we had already applied for a permit to fix it. The city took 2 months to approve that, and on June 3rd of 2024, we passed inspection. So, again, my client came in completely after the fact, moved as quickly as I could to correct a situation that they did not create. They had no hand whatsoever in creating. And we understand that the city has incurred costs in terms of enforcement, which is why we offered the $10,000. I understand it's 4.3%, but we're willing to offer anything that is reasonable, that the board considers reasonable under the circumstances. Now, I understand that we're traveling under the old ordinance, and this is probably the last mitigation hearing that you will have under the old ordinance. If there was ever a situation that warranted the board's exercise of discretion, this one is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Haynes, how much does the city have into it in our cost, what we put out through inspectors, notices, work that we've done?
I could give you an estimate.
Yep.
I think that the average 10 to 15% that we normally take will cover the city's cost.
I'm sorry,
If we go with the average of what we normally do with this board, we accept in between 10 and 15%. It will satisfy what the city has put out.
Okay. All right. My next question to you is what he is telling me correct, that the minute they bought the property, they immediately went to try to cure the situation?
It is.
Okay. That's one plus for you, Counselor, and your client. Now, how much did your client pay for this property at the time?
I do not have that information with me.
How big of a property is it?
I can look at the property records, but big enough to accommodate 11 units of workforce.
It's not telling me. I'm trying to see what your client paid for the property and what the property more or less would have been worth at that time. And the reason I'm asking for that is because the part that a lot of clients don't tell their counselor, I'm not saying that he's used her, is that when they bought the property like this, they bought it at a discount because they knew, and the person selling it to them knew that they had all this money that they owed the city. So I don't know if your client falls into that category, and since you don't know any of the others, I'm sure you're not going to know that one either. So please don't tell me that you do, because then I'm going to think that you knew the others and you weren't forthcoming to me.
I do not know. I can try and find out how much they paid for the property, but it is a small property. I mean, what you had, the structure that you had there was, I looked it up on Google Maps yesterday. It was a house with an addition.
And you're getting 11 units in something that small?
I would assume that it's going to be 2 stories high.
Well,
But that's in the,
I would have to assume that it's going to be a lot more than 2-story high if you're going to get 11 units, and a lot that's supposed to be small. But nevertheless, it is what it is. Counselor,
Commissioner, would you like some information on the property?
if you have it, yes.
Yeah. I mean, in foreclosure, it was acquired for $615,000.
How much?
$615,000. The property appraiser's valuation of it is $721.
Okay, so it was acquired in foreclosure,
Yeah.
and so what I said before is accurate. They did get a deal, but it wasn't just because of what the city is owed, but it's also because it went into foreclosure. So it was a combination of both. But they got a deal. Counselor, what do you think is fair that the city should receive them? There's about a $100,000 spread. Actually, a little bit over 100,000, about 107,000, 6,000 spread between what the property was appraised at and what he sold. And that's assuming that that was the real market value, because I doubted if that was the market value at the time. It was probably higher.
Now-
But let's go with that one.
So what you're not taking into account respectfully is all the time, fees, and costs that my client has incurred in correcting all of the violations as well. Yes, they may have bought it at a discount at a foreclosure sale, but they never expected that it would be so costly and so time-consuming to get everything ready.
Give me a figure that you think is going to be a lot more fair to the city than the 4.3% that you've offered. You've heard Ms. Hines on the record on what she thinks would be satisfactory to at least cover our costs.
I would agree with the city that a 10% of the amount of the fine is reasonable under the
You
circumstances.
don't think 15 is?
I do not believe so if you take into account the expenses that my client has incurred.
So then, you want to split the difference at 12 and a half?
If that's what the board is inclined to do, then that's what I'll take to my client.
Ms. Hines, what say you? Do you think that we're going to be covered at 10% or we're going to be covered at 12 and a half? I don't want to fall short.
I'm okay with 10.
Okay. All right. So 10 will be the amount that I would make the motion for. And it's only because your client immediately jumped to cure the situation.
I understand. I understand your point, but we are truly the White House here.
I do have a problem with people coming here dressed in white when they've gotten a good deal out of what others did. So there's a motion, Chairwoman, for 10%.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
As amended?
As amended.
Thank you very much for your time.
Gentlemen, are we ready to take up CA4 settlement? Edwin Gomez?
I'm sorry, which one are we at again?
CA4. It's the last of the CA items.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Who pulled it for discussion?
Commissioner Correa.
Okay.
Mr. Manager, can we have full disclosure? Because no names were put in this. And since we're talking so much about settlements and suits and attorney's fees, that there should be names. Whom are we dealing with in this case here?
Commissioner, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Kevin Jones, Law Department. The lawsuit is styled as Evan Gomez versus the City of Miami.
Can you speak louder? So
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
The lawsuit is styled as the City of Miami versus Edwin Gomez versus the City of Miami, and Javier Ortiz.
Edwin
It's still around.
Roman
Edwin Gomez.
Gomez
Yes, sir.
and
Versus the City of Miami and Javier Ortiz.
so it's against the city of Miami and Javi Ortiz.
Yes, sir.
Is the city of Miami still involved in this?
The court has issued rulings that have granted the city's motions, and the city has been dropped from the case, well, out of the case at this moment. There's still the potential for an appeal, but the court has granted our motions, and the city is no longer in the litigation.
Okay. So what did I miss? If the city's no longer in litigation,
Well, it depends on the question, sir.
what have I missed here?
Well, there is a potential for an appeal, right? The officer, Javier Ortiz, is still in the case on a single count, and obviously the way the case started, there were constitutional claims as well as state law claims, and as you know, our normal process is if the officer is within the course and scope of his employment, or that's the allegation, but we believe there's a conflict, we get conflict counsel for the officer, and we take the city. That normal process was followed here. There are dispositive motions filed. The court has granted those motions in part. The part that's relevant to, I think, our discussion now is that the city has been dropped, or at least ruled that we're no longer in the case. There is a potential for an appeal for the claims against the city, but the claim against, I think, one count against Javier Ortiz, Officer Ortiz, still remains.
Okay.
So that count, did you want to jump in? So that counsel that we retained for Javier Ortiz is still there representing Mr. Javier Ortiz.
Help me out. 'Cause I didn't take my smart pill today. So if we are concerned that they could win this appeal, why are there some people out there that are not concerned, or they seem, that I'm not going to win the appeal that's going to have an oral argument at the end of this April on that $63.5 million in Broward County with a Broward jury and the kangaroo court that I went through?
Well, I don't know how to answer that, but I can tell you that in the present case, the case that we're discussing, there is a potential for the appeal. And I know you'd all been briefed that this is...
There's always a potential for an appeal. Right. And we also all know the percentages on appeal that are winnable or not, or are in the middle, a 50-50 appeal. Now, what percentile do you put this appeal at? Is it an appeal that they're going to hit the ball out of the park and win it, hands down, because the judge was so prejudiced in favor of the city? Or is it an appeal that you had a straightforward judge that ruled on what the law says he should have ruled on, and that we should have a pretty high percentile of winning the appeal? Or is it somewhere in the middle because the law was cloudy?
Yeah, I don't have a
And it
crystal
could go
ball.
either way.
But to your question, I think we have a strong position in this case.
Okay, we have a strong position. So let me come to the next question then. You answered the first one. We have a strong position in the case. Who is going to be handling the appeal? Will it be our inner staff itself, or?
Yes, sir. It'd be our office.
How much do you estimate that is going to cost us in hourly rates to handle the appeal in-house?
That would be free to you, because we have lawyers in-house that can...
Well, that's the way that I see it.
Yeah.
We're going to pay you guys regardless of whether you're working or not. But you're encouraging me, Mr. Jones, being so forthright, and I appreciate that. But let's say, for the side of arguing on the other side that if you weren't doing this work, you could be doing other stuff that maybe somebody else has to do that we're paying for, or I don't know. How much do you think hourly rates of us doing it in-house we would put in on the staff that we would be using? Plus additional cost that might be involved. Is this third DCA or
Federal court.
11th, okay.
Federal court. Okay, so if I understand your question, you're asking what the general hourly rate is for a federal court practitioner?
Well, no, it's our people.
Okay.
In our hourly rate, how much do you think we're going to put into it? And this is an approximate cost, Kevin.
No, I
How
understand.
much do you think we would put in our rate?
Okay, so there's a two-part answer to that question. If we're going to do it in-house, you got to look at the number of hours it would take to do an appeal. I would say general estimate of an appeal of this type is probably 40 hours, maybe 40 to 60 hours. We are entitled to, in the eventuality that we win cases, and we're entitled to a fee shifting. The lawyers in the city attorney's office are entitled to their hourly rate, the same hourly rate a lawyer in the general public would get. So that part of your question has two parts. If it's internal, right? If we're doing it internally, again, it's free. We're just looking at the number of hours that the lawyer would put into defending.
Right, but how much are those internal hours are we having to pay those attorneys for the amount of hours that you said? I forgot, did you say 40?
40, right. Well, if it's internal, the person gets a salary. So it would just be they worked on the project for 40 hours. If you're asking me what that going rate is out in the public, that's a different answer.
George, no, I'm not going in the public. I'm going in-house. I think Kevin got tired of me. He was so straightforward on the last question. Let me take you now. See if you could understand me better. I'm just trying to find out the approximate 40 hours or 50 hours that it might take to handle this appeal. What do you estimate that whoever you use, I don't know what hourly rate we pay them based on their salary, yearly salary, how much would that be costing the city on that person that we're going to assign to this?
So what's our blended rate? We're like at
I understand what he's asking.
50 to 100. So let's say 40 hours. You could estimate at 300 an hour. I think what he
We
wants
pay
to say
people
is how much
$300
would it
an hour
cost
here?
the city if we were to do this, and what's the ballpark number? for the
So,
thing?
you figure, okay, if you use 100 hours and you do 40 hours and you do 40 times 100. What I was trying to explain was because we're in-house, we're salaried, so the hourly rate wouldn't be a direct comparison to what it would cost for somebody else.
And you're right.
Okay.
But since we're doing it in-house, that's why I didn't want the outside rate.
Oh, okay, I understand.
Not in a case like this that doesn't require going outside. So even if we go at $250 an hour, we're about $10,000. That's our in-house cost.
Jeez.
Commissioner Reyes, you're the economist. What say you?
Yes, sir, I am. I've been a proponent of using in-house attorneys more than hiring from the outside. It's going to cost around $10,000. We should do it inside.
We sort of got.
Yeah, you got to.
Yeah, we got turnaround. We got turnaround. Okay, so this settlement is to settle the last remaining claim in the case. That last remaining claim is against Javier Ortiz. That's really the focal point of this deal. It's to resolve that claim so that the entire case, the potential for the plaintiff to appeal against the city, and the final resolution of the claim altogether comes to an end. That's what this is. It's not just the appeal for the city.
And I just also
Yes.
wanted to add, Edwin Gomez, the plaintiff, is a former City of Miami police officer. he is suing the city and a almost former police captain named Javier Ortiz. At the time that this lawsuit was filed, it involved allegations against the city and against Javier Ortiz. Some were personal towards Javier Ortiz, some were as his authority as a supervising officer. And so where the city attorney at the time made the decision to retain counsel because there was a conflict with Mr. Ortiz, because he's got plenty of cases that we've had to handle, and so there's no way our office could have represented Javier Ortiz. So outside counsel has been retained. Outside counsel estimates that to resolve this case, to take this case to trial, and I think there was a trial date set this week, but it was set off pending this settlement. So there's a potential that if we were to go to trial, it would cost between $50,000 and $100,000.
Yeah.
And so really this settlement is basically cutting those costs of the continuing litigation, and it's truly a business decision. I don't believe any of these people, like, I'm not putting my hand on the Bible for either of these officers, the plaintiff or the defendant. It's a terrible case. It's an unfortunate situation for the city to be in. I'm just looking at dollars and cents. You know, if we're going to spend $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 and we can get out at 100, that's a business decision that we felt compelled to bring to you. If you want us to try it, we'll be more than happy to try it. But that's where we're at.
All the allegations happened while Mr. Ortiz was working as the city employee?
That's correct. That's correct.
He was his supervisor, I believe, in the chain of command.
That makes a difference to me. I will go ahead and make the motion. It's not a huge amount, but it's real money.
I call these one of those pinch your nose sort of settlements, unfortunately.
Hopefully, you know, it's not drip and drops.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner Reyes?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
I have a question. Is the last that they're going to hear from Javi Ortiz, or we are going to keep on?
We expect that this is the last we'll hear from Officer Ortiz. He is set to separate, I believe, later this year.
Not unless Commissioner, that great police chief, greatest police chief in America, brings them to trial against you, me, and the city.
Yep. Yep. But at least we're going to get rid of Javi Ortiz.
Okay. RE3 was pulled for discussion.
Chair,
RE3.
my apologies, Chair. PH1 is still in play.
Excuse me, R.E.
Wait, PH1. No,
Oh, yeah, right.
PH1 passed.
Yeah,
Page-
I was the one but here's the problem.
PH1 was tabled from this morning?
It was
Yeah.
tabled. Okay.
Yeah, so here's the problem. The problem is that they gave me the formula, but if I don't have the purchase price or a number to go, well, you can't do the formula.
I'm sorry, where are we
We're
at?
talking about the sale of the MRC building, basically.
PH1.
PH1.
Andrew,
That was sold already, right?
no, go ahead.
So the formula is a fee that the buyer, Adler, in the future, after they purchase the land and they build a project, they still have to pay the city a percentage of any money any profit that they make in the future. So on the sale or the refinance. So what this does is, at the time of the sale or the refinance, say they build an apartment building, and the apartment building has 300 units in it, just for round numbers. And they sell that building for, whatever, $100 million. There's a 2% fee that they owe the city on the profit from that sale. So that's that's nice. The city gets to participate in the profits of the developer. That's a nice thing. We don't usually get that. Right? Usually when you sell a piece of land, right, you're out of the deal and whoever the buyer is just builds whatever they want. In this case, we not only sell the land to Adler, then we participate in the profits if they were to refinance or to sell that deal to another landlord. So the amendment today is to say, okay, you take that price, for example, say it was a 300-unit apartment building. If Adler is able to use up to 10 units of density on another phase of the development and one of the surrounding towers, then that 2% fee that they pay the city on the profits of the sale or the refinance is then prorated for 10 additional units. So it's additional proceeds to the city that we...
What was the original sale price?
The 2% is not calculated
Forget
on...
about 2%, the original sales price number.
85 million? What was the original sales price? 85? 69 million.
69 million. Okay.
Yeah. So we get this, the city gets the sale price, so when we sell the land, and then on top of that, we get to participate in the profits on the sale or the refinance.
Commissioner, it's actually a little rare to get a kicker. We'll call a kicker if they resell it again.
Yeah.
The reason why we can't put a value to it is we don't know what they'll sell it for, right? So, example to what Andrew said, if they sell it for $200 million, it's a number at 2%. If they sell it for $300 million, it's 2% of that number. So the number is really dependent on what they ultimately sell it for. What this provides for is now we're adding 10 additional units to that calculation. That's really what we're doing here.
Yeah. So, and that 2% fee document is already a recorded document. And so that will be enforced on the settlement, on the closing statement, anytime that there's a sale. So the city is protected. It's a recorded document. And this adds a little juice to that in that if they're able to use up to 10 units of density in an earlier phase, we get paid for that too. So it's a little extra money. And as the city manager pointed out, it's unusual to get this kind of participation in the upside of the deal, so we're happy about that.
Thank you.
So, and when the sale or refinance happens, then the 2% will be calculated off of whatever that sale price is at the time. We don't know what that sales price is right now, but if it's 100 million, it's 2% of 100 million. If it's 200 million, it's 2% of that. So we're going to get that depending on what the sale price is. We'll get 2%.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Reyes?
Yes, I have a question. The 2 is only for the 10 additional units. It is.
No, it applies to the entire transaction. We're just adding
Part of, I would say, it's only for the 10 additional units. The rest of the apartments, the apartments that they sell, they don't have any. We don't receive anything.
Yeah, we do. So what they're doing is they're transferring 10 units of development rights to one of the adjacent properties. In doing that, because that's above and beyond the transaction involved in the MRC, they're adding density, which means we'll get more money off the resale. They're adding density that they wouldn't normally be allowed to have.
Right.
Is what they're doing.
So the 2% will be calculated on the MRC site,
yes,
plus the value of these 10 additional units. So
it's in addition to.
Exactly. So it's not just 2% on the 10 units. So it's 2% on the whole thing.
On the whole thing, okay.
Yes.
May I have a motion?
Move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner Cabello?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I didn't hear you.
Could we go to Mel Reese and get that out of the way already? Miami Freedom Park.
Well, that would be coming up next. Let's just go in order and take up RE3 for And then Mel Reese is right after that. RE3. Commissioner Pardo?
Yep. This item's been deferred and on the agenda now several times. And I know, City Attorney, we've been able to talk about some ideas as far as bringing back something more concrete and a policy. Bottom line here is the residents feel that they are paying fees that they should not be paying. The city feels that these are justified fees based on the business at hand. I thought maybe, given the example that was just brought up, you could take that case of the $63.5 million and walk us through what the city's position is and what is within the scope of a commissioner's work, what is outside the scope of a commissioner's work, and why sometimes you have to be part of that appeal, and why sometimes at the end you can get your attorney's fees back.
Right.
And so some of these constraints are really unknown. I was hoping you could walk us through that.
And of course, first of all, the concept of suspending or preventing the payment of upfront legal fees for an elected official who in their official capacity is doing the city's work, and some plaintiff sues because they don't like what you're doing. My feeling is, and I think it's many people's feelings, that there would be a tremendous chilling effect on the quality of people that would run for office, because you'd have to be, a billionaire to be able to run to confidently feel that you can beat all these cases. So we've got that issue. Now, why do I say that? Florida Statute Chapter 111 provides that concept of Florida law is you only use municipal dollars to pay for things that affect the municipality, the people, public purpose. Chapter 111 says one of those things is the defense of police officers and the defense of other city employees who are sued in their official capacity under color of law. So that entitles us, that statute says it's discretionary, we may pay. But then there are cases, a Florida Supreme Court case that says it's actually not discretionary, it's mandatory that we pay. So if you're sued and you prevail, the city has to pay. Now, two concepts on that. If we were to say, all right, you got sued, good luck with that, come to us after the case is over, you're going to hire whatever lawyer you want, probably an expensive lawyer, because you're fighting for not only your position on the city commission, but your reputation as well. And so we have no control over who you hire or how much those legal fees are. Ultimately, they'll come to the city commission, but 9 times out of 10, that could end up in some sort of a hearing to determine how much the legal fees are, and those would usually be on the high end. So when we pay up front, we have the ability to work with you to find counsel that is both reasonable and relatively affordable. And, a lot of folks take it as a privilege to represent elected officials and the city of Miami in these cases, and they offer us a better rate than, say, they would offer a general person in the public. So we can control costs and fees and stuff like that. The other and then the other concept of why would we want to pay up front is, a plaintiff could bankrupt one of you. It's the cost of litigation today, where attorneys are $700 to $1,000 an hour to pay for these cases. And mind you, so a lawsuit comes in, you read the claim, and earlier today it was mentioned that you could put anything on a complaint. $401, you can file a complaint. You can write all kinds of crazy things in that complaint, saying that this person violated every law and stuff like that. But we have to defend that claim. And a lot of times those claims are ultimately overturned. And so when those cases come in, we have to make a judgment as to whether or not that case relates to official acts of the elected official or outside acts. There's cases that say, for example, an elected official who sexually harassed one of his staff persons. The city refused to cover that type of case because they said that was outside the course and scope, obviously. And the city prevailed and didn't have to pay those upfront legal costs. But it gets more difficult when somebody, say, challenges a decision you made or challenges the intent of the decision you made. And so we try and sort of figure that out and come up with a determination as to whether or not it should be covered. Secondly, the question is, let's say there's a case, somebody makes these allegations against somebody, it goes to trial. I've always said that the best work that the city attorney's office does, and this is no slight to my pit litigators, but the best work we do is often in the appellate courts. Because when you go in front of a judge and a jury, it's very easy to get a result. It's much more difficult to get that result to withstand appellate review and what I call deliberative review of the facts and circumstances of the case. We tend to prevail more in the appellate cases than we do in the trial cases. Why is that? I don't know if any of you have been called to jury duty recently, but you sit through the process of voir dire, and I was called for a criminal case a couple of months ago, and you hear people talk. Any experience with law enforcement? Yes. What kind of experience? They arrested me. They shouldn't have arrested me. I hate the city. I hate the county. The public out there is not predisposed to voting in our behalf, and it becomes increasingly more difficult to defend our cases. And it's a shame, really, because when you think about ultimately who pays these verdicts and these decisions, it's the taxpayer, right? And those taxpayers are the ones who are the members of the jury who are, persuaded by a plaintiff's counsel or a defense counsel. And so I think, so my train of thought was, as far as the case, you may have a case with a verdict, and then should we cut the elected official off at that point? Our view is, and the court's view is, the case is not resolved until the case is resolved, until the final court has say. So I think that a case is still in play if it's been to trial, verdict comes out, there's appealable issues, it's still at play. I think that at each level you have to examine, though, is it still related to the official course and scope, government business, stuff like that. And so I had recently been reviewing the law, and I noticed, for example, in Miami Lakes, they have a policy that says, the city will retain counsel under certain circumstances. The problem with those policies is when you try and make a rigid policy, the stuff we deal with here is never black and white, vanilla type of stuff. It's always difficult to figure out, the edges, the parameters, and things like that. So, but what I did take away from that policy was, and what I have told, Commissioner Reyes had brought this item on payment of fees up before, and I've heard from many of you that you're concerned that it's like the city attorney's office is a blank check to a lawyer. You want us to review these cases, you want us to look into them, and ultimately the law says you all have the authority to determine whether or not you should pay upfront or not. So my commitment to you is that in the future, as cases come in, we will review the case, determine whether we think it's a case that is one that should be paid up front. Number one, defended, but number two, paid up front. And then we'll circulate that among you. I'll individually speak with you. If any of you object to the coverage of that payment, then I'll bring it to the City Commission, and then the City Commission can have a say. I think, that might work. And of course, at any time, if you find that we are covering somebody and you disagree with that coverage, you can set it on the agenda and ask me, why are you covering this person? But, so that's the best I can offer. I do think this is it's a feel-good road, but I think ultimately you will rue the consequences of not providing yourself with the ability to be represented for cases up front. Because, like I said, it's very expensive. It's a difficult jury pool out there. And so these are long-haul cases, and I just throw that out there as my counsel and advice.
But George, because of the continuity of the last years here is precisely, and this is precisely why we got in trouble in the sense that the insurance company dropped us. Dropped one commissioner, and because that commissioner was dropped, okay, everybody else is dropped. So right now, we're operating that we don't have insurance, and anything, you know, the city's paying for it, the taxpayers are paying for it. I feel bad about that. One thing is having insurance, and another thing is the taxpayer footing the bill. That's what I'm concerned about, as I'm sure the other commissioners are concerned about. That's my 5 cents worth.
I neglected to mention that. I do think that, you know, insurance carriers make decisions, and our insurance carrier made a decision a couple years ago, excuse me, that they, first they raised the premiums, and then they increased the deductible, and then they said they would only cover certain individuals. And then it's my understanding that we didn't have policy coverage. I still recommend that we should be out on the market looking to see if we can get coverage for you all at an affordable rate with affordable terms. I share your concern. I would prefer to have an insurance carrier that covers, even if it's the secondary insurer where they cover up to a certain amount. I think you should ask the administration to continue trying to obtain reasonable insurance coverage.
Yeah, but the decision was made by the administration, as I was told, that because that one, in other words, they would cover 4 other commissioners, but except that one commissioner. But the decision was made, I was told, or this is what I'm aware of, that because of that, the administration said, no, if you don't cover that everybody, you're not gonna cover anybody. Is that correct?
I think so, but you should probably ask the administration. I don't want to mislead you.
Entrar a la administración.
The question was, did the administration make the determination to not retain coverage when they were willing to cover 4 but not all 5? And it's my understanding that we decided as a city that that's unfair and we weren't going to pick and choose who they're going to cover. But I don't want to speak for the administration.
So in other words, for example, I don't have insurance because of another commissioner's action.
Well, we're self-insuring. You know, it's not like you don't have coverage, but
yes,
self-insurance. I mean,
right.
That's.
Commissioner Reyes, do you have comments?
No, I agree with Commissioner Gavella that this is has been used and abused, and something has got to be done about it. And it is embarrassing that we can get insurance for 4 other commissioners only and leave 1 out, and that means that there are a lot of money has been spent in that commissioner, and we have to understand that something got to be done. Something got to be done. So I agree with Commissioner Rivera.
Have we gone out in the market to look to see what insurance companies are out there that have policies available outside of this one that we've been dealing with? Have we? Who can answer me?
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Anne-Marie Sharp, Director of Risk Management, for the record. Is that better?
Yes.
Anne-Marie Sharp, Director of Risk Management, for the record. I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question is, have we gone out into the marketplace to see what insurance companies are out there that can give us quotes outside of the lone single insurance company that we have been dealing with?
We did in October because the policy expired October 31st. October 30. The effective date of the new policy was November 1. So yes, we went out to the market last year when the policy expired, and the year before that. We will be going out again in September, August, September for a 11/1 renewal.
how many insurance companies are there that cover cities like us?
Yes, a lot of cities are self-insured.
That's not what I've asked. How many insurance companies are out in the market that could cover a city like Miami?
There are quite a few in the excess market, just a handful, because each time that we have gone out, we get from our broker a list of carriers that they approached and how the carriers respond, right? So we'll ask them to go out to as many carriers as possible. And some carriers will deny to quote on certain lines of coverage, right? Like some carriers will quote your law enforcement, but won't want to quote on your public officials liability, for example. So it's just a handful who will quote on your coverages, certain lines at different levels of retention.
Yep. Did we also go out to the excess market?
This is the excess market we're talking about, yes, sir.
Okay. And what was well, first of all, how many companies did we approach? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, no. I would have to look at the last proposal we received last October.
Have we tried maybe using a different broker to see what they bring to us?
So an RFP went out last year for a broker, and that is still in the process. It was evaluated, and we're waiting for that to be awarded.
We can go out in the market and ask half a dozen brokers for the same thing so that we could get some quotes?
We could explore that. However, usually when you're on contract with one broker, that broker becomes your broker of record. And so the market is only going to respond to your broker of record on your behalf. Usually there's one broker of record, but we could explore otherwise. I've not seen us do otherwise, but I'm open to looking at it.
I hope someone is open to not just to look at it, but to actually go out there, because I cannot believe that with all the insurance companies that we have, not only in the U.S., but outside of the U.S., we can't find any that will give us quotes.
Well, we will lean on our broker or the market in general for as aggressively as we can to get whatever quote we can.
But what quotes did we ever get?
The last time?
Yeah, last year you said.
Well, the premium, the quotes were, the conditions were, we will write your policy excluding, with certain exclusions. So all policies have exclusions.
Yeah, every policy, no matter what insurance you get.
Right. And some carriers will impose more exclusions than others. And we usually try to negotiate the best terms we can get at the level that we deem. So our retention is, the carrier will say, I will write you a policy, but you have to retain $2 million worth of, of your losses, right, on each claim. So the first $2 million, and for an entity or size, or for large entities with larger exposures, analogous to insuring an expensive car versus a lower price car, right? The exclusions are different based on the exposure. So it's the exposure that the carrier is evaluating.
Okay, well, you figure out what she said, Commissioner Reyes?
Could we take a vote on this, maybe defer it? I don't know.
Yeah, I wanted to just bring up, I had one quick question.
Commissioner Pardo had a comment, and I do have a comment on this.
Go ahead, Madam Chair.
Well, I don't think it's any secret. I have been against this all along, based on everything that our city attorney has said, I don't think that we should make decisions based on popularity. Right now, I am facing a lawsuit. Kevin can attest to this. Yes, you don't want me to say anything?
You guys might be facing one tomorrow or the next day. You never know.
But the point is, I know it will have no merits, but I shouldn't have to defend it myself. I won't say, I won't.
Let me do it. That way.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. So to reiterate what the city attorney said and what the Madam Chair said is that there is potential of a claim against her. In its early stages, I've looked at what's there. I don't think there's any merit to it, but that sort of just proves the point, right? Anybody with $400 in a grievance can file multiple successive lawsuits against you, and you individually, each one of you. And they, unfortunately, the plaintiffs get to dictate the form in which they're going to bring this lawsuit. So it could be everything from a county court mishap to what we have seen recently is successive federal lawsuits. Now, federal lawsuits, by their very nature, are long, involved, and complicated. And it's no secret why the recent spate of cases, they've named multiple city employees to make this more complicated and more expensive. This conversation, in my estimation, proves the rule why the city attorney needs to be able to step in and get counsel for you guys. This example proves exactly why we need to keep being able to provide counsel for you guys on an individual basis. Perhaps, you know, what George has suggested, that we screen it, we bring it to you, and let you ultimately make the decision on what you want to do. But this is what we've seen in the last couple of years proves the effect that $400 and a dot matrix printer can have on this organization, right? To the extent that it's affecting insurance. Now, I won't get into what I think about the merits of all of these cases being filed. If asked, I would say we have a very strong position on all of them. But that doesn't do anything with the damage and effect it will have, right? And by eliminating our ability to get you counsel, or as the circumstances deem fit, you are really putting yourselves in a disadvantage.
So, in addition to, the Florida Supreme Court has said we do have a right. Now, I think what no one wants to acknowledge, the elephant in the room, is that 2 of our commissioners are being sued right now from a former employee. They fully believe that they're going to be, the case is going to resolve in their favor, but they're being sued right now.
And the manager.
Oh, and the manager. There's several.
And the city.
There's several employees being sued as well.
By the best police chief in America.
May I speak?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Now, because I did employment law, I know that if any case comes against me that's floating out there in the air right now, we're going to win. I shouldn't have to pay upfront attorney's fees because somebody is disgruntled. And there was a colleague of ours that was sued, removed from office, only to be, the case didn't even move forward. The case was dismissed with a scathing order from the judge. No one talks about that. Everyone says at the time, just because somebody files a lawsuit against you, a complaint against you, everyone goes, oh, as if it's fact, it's the truth, and you're going to be found, a judgment is going to be found against you. That's not the case. Anyone can file a complaint against anyone, which will make you incur attorney's fees. This proposed legislation not only puts us at risk, it puts our city employees at risk, and that's not fair, particularly when the Florida Supreme Court has upheld legal fees for elected and municipal employees. I will not support this because it can't be based on popularity. And again, I'm the only one up here that perhaps could defend myself because I'm a practitioner, but that's not the point. Someone can come up here. This also includes, by the way, recall actions. I know one of us up here was threatened with that because of a position that they would take or not take. That wouldn't be fair for any of us to have to defend a recall action because some residents are disgruntled with an action that we take. So how do you pick and choose? How do you set, well, we're going to do this one, we're going to do that one? We already will not pay any legal fees for any criminal activity brought against us, correct? We're on our own for any criminal that will cause us to go whatever. So again, for all of the reasons that the city attorney stated, I state, I'm not in favor of this. It's reckless and it's outside of the law. It is outside of the law.
Can I weigh in? This is, I think we've beaten this horse to death.
I just have one quick comment after you're done, unless you just want to.
No, I just want to wrap up by saying this. The gentleman that she's referring to, which I well remember last year, that case was paid by us and all of the above you said. Meanwhile, when my house was taken out of the district, so I could not run in the district before that gentleman was even arrested, that came out of my pocket. So I fully understand what you're saying, you know, and understand. But there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way where we can minimize the damages, because the taxpayer at the end of the day is footing the bill, and we have a fiduciary, duty when we take the oath to save the taxpayer, to say, we're in charge of the purse strings, if you will, and I think that at some point, reality sets in, and by the same token, we can't just keep doing this and doing this and doing this where someday, we get into we're already in the millions of dollars, spent, and I'll leave it at that.
Madam Chair, all I wanted to say is you called it kind of a feel-good thing, but I think there is opportunity here for improvement, not just in a feel-good sense, but in a way that we offer more transparency and we put some kind of condition or guardrails around the issue that taxpayers need to be protected in terms of the way these monies are spent, or at a minimum, informed. I know that because of the big claim in this case, Commissioner Carollo was not covered by that specific claim, but that Commissioner Carollo is covered at the Bayfront Park Trust.
Separate entity, yeah, they have their own insurance policy.
Yeah,
That's a separate
not-
entity.
that's nothing.
Totally different.
Got its own insurance policy.
Okay, got it.
Can we,
Commissioner Reyes?
Madam Chair,
Uh-huh.
if I may, I have a suggestion that if proponent of the ordinance agrees,
We can't hear you, Commissioner.
you can hear me?
Now we can. Now we
Okay.
can.
That would stop all hiring as of today, of tomorrow, and would start then no hiring, we stop no hiring, and it will start looking for an insurance company that would be able, or it is willing, to insure the 4 commissioners that they don't have any quarrel with.
I think that you should do that.
Yeah, it's a directive.
I think we should be, whoever can be insured, and keep looking for a carrier
Agree.
that would insure all of us. But also remember that, we're not always going to be here. There are term limits. So that's
right.
not going to affect us forever. There are term limits. But to suspend upfront, no. And plus you haven't laid out any guidelines, any guardrails, any parameters that I can see. So I cannot support this, particularly when I know that we live in a litigious society and you can be sued for any reason.
Can we defer this item and
let's defer this item.
give time? Maybe there's a way to weave this into what you were suggesting.
Yeah, motion
City
to
Attorney?
defer.
I have a motion to defer.
Yeah,
Do I have a second?
Second.
Until when?
until they have an answer or maybe a possible alternative to
Wanna do an
another
indefinite
insurance
deferral?
company?
Indefinite, and then we can bring it back when you're ready.
Whatever you guys want, whatever this body decides.
Let's do an indefinite deferral, and it'll come back then, but hopefully staff will have some answers for us. So we had a motion and a second to indefinitely defer it. All in favor?
Aye.
RE 13.
Can I respectfully request that we handle DI3, the elephant in the room, so we can put this to bed one way or the other?
No, we're going to go in order.
Okay.
The mayor's here to make a presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for having me here on this item, RE13 and RE14. But you asked me to sort of come down and walk you through the history of how we got here. And so in 2018, the voters of Miami approved a referendum.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The city clerk wants to make sure what item we're discussing. Only 13 right
13.
now. Only
Yeah,
13.
Yeah,
Okay,
I may,
RE 13.
I may bring up aspects of 14 because I think it informs 13 at some level. But we're on item RE 13, which is the 13 is a CDD. I'm sorry. Okay, do you want me to do 13? My apologies.
13.
Do you want me to make a presentation on 13?
I don't. Do my colleagues need a presentation for RE
No,
13?
I know exactly what I'm going to do. I've been briefed. I don't have to be briefed by the mayor for me.
So,
But anyway,
does
respectfully.
anyone have any comments because it was pulled for discussion? Anyone want any information on RE 13? Are we all ready to vote on RE 13?
I have a statement to make.
Okay.
There has been a lot of media coverage, particularly from a couple of media outlets, one being our local tabloid that started it. They've been quite aggressive. The problem that I see is that this is a prime example of disinformation. The monies that years back were pledged here, and Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, Mr. City Attorney, all three of you, please hear me. If I am wrong in what I'm saying, correct me, please, and guide me the right way. What we wrote in a contract that
Mr.
money,
Vice Chair?
that money could
Are
be.
you speaking on RE 13? This is just the CDD issue. We're not on 14 yet.
Oh, I thought we were.
No. We're on 13. Do you have any issue with 13, the CDD, the creation of the CDD?
For
This is the instrument, if you will, that they're going to
collect
use to
taxes?
collect, exactly, the
no,
mechanism.
Okay.
not
Commissioner
of that.
Reyes,
I
do
think
you
it's
have an
needed.
issue
Yes.
with RE 13?
I wanna know if this is gonna be the funds are gonna be used for maintenance and repair, only if for the whole park.
For RE 13?
Yes, I'm talking about 13. And also, who's gonna control those funds? It's gonna be controlled by the city, or it's gonna be controlled by the owner of the land, which are the Mas brothers at this moment. I rather see the city be. It is tax money because what they're doing is it's additional tax, I believe the city must be in control of those funds and how they're going to be used. But I don't agree on using those funds. You see, that additional tax for construction, and I want to make it clear.
Okay. Staff, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I mean, I can take a stab at the question. CDDs could theoretically borrow on a tax exempt basis when they have a resident-based board. In this case, the property does not allow there to be residents. There's no allowance for housing on the property because it's next to the airport, and therefore they're not going to be allowed to borrow on a tax-free basis, number one. Number two, there was another concern expressed to me about what would happen in the event of a default if they did borrow funds. And CDDs do not impact the city in terms of, it's not a lien against the city property. It would be a lien against the leasehold interests that are on the property. And the tenant, essentially, who is here, has requested this in part because they want to contribute to the operation and maintenance of the park. Now understand that that is not a requirement that they have under the lease. They're giving us $20 million. They're giving us $5 million for a bay walk. They're giving us fair market value rent. They're paying us taxes, and they're privately financing their stadium. There is no stadium deal that I'm aware of in the world that does that. So in addition to that, and for reasons that are obvious, they want to make sure that the park, which is adjacent to their property, is kept up and maintained in the best condition. And so instead of, sort of letting it fall on the city, which could have good years, it could have bad years, it could have years where it maintains it well or years where it maintains it poorly, they're taking on that additional obligation, which makes the deal, frankly, even better. And so if the number that they've thrown about, they can talk about it because they have to tax their own development, is somewhere in the vicinity of $500,000 a year. Obviously, over 100 years, that's $50 million at a growth rate of 6%. That's much, much, much more than that in terms of what their contribution would be to operation and maintenance of the park, assuming that that's how they taxed their development.
I'd like to add to that, this is going straight, this is not going to the stadium, this is not going anywhere else. This is going for the maintenance of the park, pure and simple. And I think it's to everybody's advantage. If not, I wouldn't be voting for it. After all, I am the D1 commissioner, and I'm going to take some heat if things go wrong. So believe me, I would not be voting for this if it wasn't that way. I think the story that's been circulated in the Herald is incorrect on both RE13 and RE14, because this is just going to be a tax to be used, the way it was explained to me, purely on the maintenance of the park, that they will hand over the 59 acres that they are going to hand over to us on that one. Plain and simple.
Commissioner Reyes, did he answer your question?
Yeah, no, I don't see where it says, or where it stipulate that it's going to be only for maintenance and repair. You see, the way it's been written, they can, this is the financial mechanism. They can issue bonds, and the proceeds from the CDD will pay for those bonds. Those bonds could be, you cannot have housing there, that's true, but you can have office buildings that they're going to have, and then they are building also a hotel, a couple of hotels, and they are building also a shopping center. And what I want to see is that any proceeds that from that the special tax assessment, that it will go to the area for only for maintenance and maintenance and repairs. That's it.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Mr. Mayor?
I would just say that they already have the right under the agreement to borrow against the property. Obviously, they're borrowing money to finance the stadium. They have that unequivocal right to borrow money against the property. What a CDD would allow you to do in some circumstances, which it does not allow you to do in this circumstance, because you can't have a resident represented board. For example, you could do that in areas like Midtown, is it would potentially allow you to borrow on a tax-free basis. They cannot do that under this CDD, because by definition there are no residents to encompass the board that would allow them to do it under that circumstance. So they're not getting any benefit from having the CDD from that perspective. The only benefit from the CDD is to the city, that they can tax their residents and pass it through to their tenants, and then they can maintain our facility. So that's a benefit to us. They're not required to do that. They're not obligated to do that. They're doing it for obvious reasons, because they want the park to look good on day, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And they want to make sure that they can control that outcome, as opposed to leaving it up to the city, which, as we said, could have a financial crisis. It could have, a situation where it can't maintain the park up to the standard of $1 billion development that's going next to it.
I'm ready for a motion. If you guys are.
Hold on, Commissioner Reyes?
Yes, I just want to know that if there is a representative from the developers that can assure that the proceeds are going to be only for maintenance and repairs.
I believe that's what the mayor just confirmed, that the proceeds are solely for maintenance of the park.
Let me be clear. Right now, they have the right to borrow money against the property to build infrastructure, to build a stadium, to do whatever they can. They have that under the lease. This does not change that right. They still have the right under a CDD to do that. What they can't do is avail themselves of one of the mechanisms of the CDD, which is to borrow on a tax-free basis. They can't do that because under state statute, the board that manages the CDC would have to be composed of residents. And of course, you cannot have any residents on that property because it's next to the airport, and that's not allowed use. So if you want our city attorney to confirm that, that's fine, but that's what the Florida statute says.
Can I
Okay, it's still that, and it is not because I was a noble. It is because I believe that I'm afraid of what those funds are going to be used, who's going to control it, and if it's going to be used for development, construction, or it's going to be set aside only for maintenance and repairs. And also, who is going to control those funds? Let's see.
Is there a
And
possibility?
what are the limits of those funds?
Got a good question.
Well,
Is there a possibility?
what are the-
Because, on 14, I'm doing it, but I also want to create a trust, and we've had conversations about this. Can that be done? Can a trust also be done for the CDC? Or
So
can I?
I just wanted to say, RE13 is simply this city commission supporting the petition of the property owner to go to the county to request the creation of a community development district under Chapter 190. So Chapter 190 will control everything, and essentially it'll be like your familiarity is probably with bid boards and things like that. They'll have an election of property owners that will create a board, and the board will determine where those funds are used, and that board determines where those either assessments or tax dollars are to be used, and ultimately that board will be in control of those funds.
Yeah, but
Mr.
to your point,
It
Commissioner.
made through the chair, Mr. Weissman, you're talking about there's going to be a board's going to be formed with property owners. There's only one property owner, unless it's going to happen what I predicted, that it's going to be subleased to other entities. I mean a hotel that could be built. The land will be subleased for 99 years, et cetera, et cetera. You see, that's different. But now there is only one property owner.
Yeah, and I would just, I think there's two different issues here. One of them is the control of the city park and what kind of management structure would be.
The city park, my dear Mayor, I believe that we have to follow
We lost you again.
Yeah.
Okay, you're back.
Hello?
You're back. You're back.
See, $20 million is a different question. This is a question that concerns me. Yeah. And if you want to call the votes, if you have the votes, fantastic. Okay?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, and just to finish, I think, just to finish my statement, I think the two things are separate, right? The control and operation of the park is separate from a CDD. They already have
Yes.
the right to, they already have the right to borrow money. What the CDD does is allow them to tax, right, and use that tax to
Yes.
do things with it. Right now, they're under no obligation to do that. So this is just a benefit to the city. It's not complicated. Of course, they have control of those funds because they are taxing themselves. And so their board will be themselves, right, because they are taxing themselves. So that makes sense. But it's for our benefit. And they don't have they have no obligation to do that. So this is like found money. This is money that they were not obligated to pay in any respect in any part of the deal. So it's just going to it's just going to make the deal better than what it was.
Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Recorded as one no. Thank you. RE 14.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You asked me to appear here on RE14 and sort of walk you through the process because I was here from the beginning negotiating this and bringing it to the commission and ushering it through a public vote, which was over 60%. And the referendum language was very clear that one of the provisions was that $20 million was going to a 58-acre park or other green space. The reason why so again, let me just be very clear. The referendum was clear that the 20 million was going to go to the 58-acre park. It created an or, which is an opening, other green space. The reason why that was done is because this is a constitutional question. When you put something on the ballot, it's constitutional. So you want to have some wiggle room in case the body itself wants to deviate from what the voters have expressly requested. There was a question at the time that we took it to the ballot about how we would comply with a concept called no net loss, meaning that if we zone the property for something commercial, we would have to replace it with equivalent public space. At 3 years later, so nothing happened for 3 years, 3 years later, when the lease was negotiated, there was never, as part of the negotiations of the lease, a discussion to defund the $20 million or a portion of the $20 million, because what ultimately happened was right here from the dais, right from that spot, a commissioner, and every commissioner has a right to do this, and I can understand why it was done at the time, because again, no net loss had not been disposed of. The zoning had not been done. Decided to say, hey, why don't we take 7.5 of the 20 million? There's been people out there saying that this item takes $20 million of funds from parks across the city and reallocates them to this park. That's false. There's been people that have said, this is going to the developer, or this is for the developer's benefit. That is also false. This is a city park that the residents voted in favor of allocating $20 million to. By the way, in 2018 dollars, we're in 2024, 6 years later, $20 million, which was what's allocated to do that project, is not the same as $20 million today. You know, it's like giving, the underline a haircut of $20 million or the underdeck, which we're getting $60 million for, right? They had a budget, and that's what the budget was for. The commission, 3 years later, and understandably because the no net loss issue had not been resolved by then, said, hey, why don't we carve out, because you do have this little ability to do that, why don't we carve out 7.5 of the $12 million and allocate them to 3 districts? Commissioner Reyes, if you remember, yours was not one of them, right? So let's allocate them to 3 districts at the tune of $2.5 million per district, and in case we need it for no net loss, which is very reasonable. 4 months later, the property was rezoned. The no net loss issue was disposed of in the rezoning. It could not have been rezoned without dealing with no net loss. And so therefore, my position is that money should be restored based on what the voters voted on and the will of the voters. Having said all of that, I understand that maybe a voter or a resident in District 2 or a resident in District 5 or a resident in District 3 might say, hey, well, what about the $2.5 million that were supposed to come to me? So what I'm requesting is that an amendment be made to the resolution, that the manager come in the mid-year and also allocate $7 million to those funds, and so that no resident, in the city can say that they feel in any way, shape, or form disenfranchised by the fact that we're fully funding our park, one of our largest parks in our portfolio, right? We have Bayfront Park, we have Maurice Ferré Park, we have Virginia Key, and this is one of the large 60 acres, one of the largest parks.
The
And we're
second largest.
second largest, right? In our portfolio, in 2018 dollars, by the way. And we're still going to, at the same time, do right by the residents and find the funds to make sure that no district is negatively impacted. That was impacted by the decision at the lease statement before no net loss to defund a portion of the $20 million and spread it around the city. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Okay.
if I may, Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Sure.
In light of that modification, could I request that we take that direction that you've incorporated and do it in the year end as opposed to the mid-year?
No. Mid-year's in April. And by the way, I would add that if we do it in April, the second payment, which is due in the summer, those districts would get those funds prior to that second payment being made and them receiving those funds. So they're actually going to get the funds faster.
Chair,
But I think we can do it in the mid-year.
let me make sure I understood what you said, Mr. Mayor. You're saying that the manager is going to find those funds to give to each of the three districts before the end of the year?
In the
Mid-year.
Mid-year, excuse me.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if I may suggest this to you, let me work with the manager, because I believe I could find the fund for the three districts, because one was getting more, and find sufficient funds to give Commissioner Reyes his $2.5 million also for his district.
I have no problem with that.
If you would allow me that, I will work with the manager, and I will show him fairly quick where the money could be found.
And if I can add, Mr. Commissioner, I have no problem with that. Obviously, I'm working with the Commissioner Reyes on another project in his district that I'm very passionate about, where I was intending to help him in the mid-year anyways, not necessarily related to this. But I'm happy to do that. And I would just say that we amend this resolution to require that to happen. And the only reason why is, understandably, look, I've been to some of my colleagues and I've said, trust me, I give you my word. And apparently, understandably, we live in a different world, in a different age, where trust me, I give you my word is not, unfortunately, the same as putting it in a resolution where it's binding. And I understand that, and I'm fine with that. So I would just request that
Commissioner Reyes, you're fine with me doing that?
Well, anything that you can send to my district, I will take it. But the most important thing about this resolution is that it is respecting the will of the people. The referendum read that $20 million was going to be used to build a 58-acre park. And I think that's what the mayor wants to do, and I will support that because that's the will of the people.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Hold on a second. Vice Chair?
Okay. Let me go and try to, I think we reached consensus. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was a very good speech, one of the best I've seen you give, explanation.
Yes.
You're impressing me. You might make a top attorney the way you're going. But
Wait, Mr. Mayor, I think there are a couple of questions. Commissioner Gabella had a question.
But I think there's been so much disinformation thrown out there that
There really has.
we also need to clear that up.
Sad.
At no time, and again, you're here, the manager, the city attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, at no time have we been speaking about that this project, the Moss Brothers, Beckton, are not going to pay us the $20 million. So they're going to somehow do a switch and bait and use it to redo or do the project or use that money to build the park. That's not the case at all. The $500,000 that we were talking about that might be derived approximately from the CDD that we were just talking about and voted upon, it's not going to be enough to keep the maintenance of 58 acres. There's no way. It'll probably be at the very least double that, if not more. And I could tell you, because I know the cost of what it costs us at Bayfront Park and Maurice Ferré Park. And this is going to be a very used park. So what was being talked about here was that that money was going to be put into a fund, as I understood it, so that it could be used for the yearly maintenance or the upkeep of that park, to be joined by this other $500,000 or whatever amount of dollars they would derive by taxing themselves. The bottom line is that whether we send those $20 million there or we keep it for our parks over here, we're going to be spending that money here and there. Because if we don't, let's say we take it, spend it in our districts, then we're going to have to yearly, in our general fund budget, make up for the deficit that the new CDD will not bring in for another $500,000 or more dollars to maintain that park. That would be our obligation. So I hope I'm being clear what I'm saying, that either we pay by maintaining Freedom Park, or we pay over here, use that money in our districts, and then pay for Freedom Park. And if we bring that money for the future maintenance of Freedom Park, hopefully with the idea that I'm going to provide and the suggestion the mayor had, we will have the additional dollars for the districts involved. I don't think there was any talk of the other $10 million that will be going to District 1. That's
Right now, 12.5 million are going, and then 5 million are going to District 2 through the Baywalk.
very good.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Cabela.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to say a couple of things. So just to reiterate what everybody said so far, and I think Carol is right. I mean, either way you slice it, I mean, it's going to go into parks. What I was going to say, number one, my district is the second district with less park space in the city. Marolo's, I understand, is number one. Commissioner Reyes is number one that has less parks. Mine is number two. So, you know, it kind of does make sense. The other thing is, I want to make clear, the money, the $20 million is not going to the stadium. I want to reiterate that again. To build the stadium or for infrastructure. The money is going toward the maintenance of the 59-acre parcel that the stadium was going to turn over to us, okay, with greenery and with a walkway. And then the $20 million is supposed to be used to either improve that and as a maintenance. If you break it up, the 59 acres into $20 million, you're talking about $339K roughly per acre. That's not a lot of money when you consider, you know, in lighting and this and that, it goes. But that's the thing. You know, the story that the Herald wrote is incorrect because they were making it, you know, look like the money is going to help build the stadium or that nature, and it is not. If not, I wouldn't be voting for this. And the other thing is, I'm doing it, and the only condition I'm setting, and I think we've agreed to this, is that we, after we take this vote and this becomes effective, that we're going to form the mechanism or the instrument of a trust, like Bayfront Trust, for example. And why am I worried about that, and why am I doing it? is because I don't want it to land up in the parks budget and then somehow years later on, you know, the money's not used for what the referendum and the voter, you know, voted for. In other words, we need to have the $20 million there because it's in everybody's interest that that park is well maintained. You know, one way or the other, you know, good or bad, I'm going to get the brunt of the situation for the next, you know, 3 years when that park is built. So I want to assure myself and my residents, you know, and the taxpayer that this money is indeed what they voted on, and it's going to go straightly to that parcel. I cannot stress enough. If not, I want to be doing this. I want to be, you know, voting for it. But I am convinced that they have the best intentions in the world, that they are truthful in this, and that the 20 million is going to be set aside for this and not for anything else. And therefore, I'd like to see Mr. City Manager, Mr. Wysong, City Attorney, the creation of the trust along the lines of a Bayfront Trust or something of that nature, where the money's locked in to those operations. Thank you.
Just to be clear, that's not part of this resolution, though.
Sorry?
That's not part of this resolution. That'll be something that
No, yes.
in the future.
I believe Commissioner Pardo.
Yes, I just wanted to say I'm very much in favor of the public park, and I want to thank you, Mayor. I want to thank you, Commissioner Carollo, for working to find the monies, the $2.5 million from the districts that you're looking to find. With that said, I've reviewed minutes, I've reviewed video. There's a lot of conflicting information. I haven't been able to verify. I was hoping for a deferral in this case, but I see that there's pretty much consensus, so I'll be voting against. But that's my rationale.
Commissioner Pardo, through the chair, you will accept the $2.5 million that I'm going to find, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, one condition. You don't give any to Billy over there.
I'm ready for a motion.
Hold on.
If you gentlemen,
I'd
if
like-
Commissioner Reyes is ready and you guys are
I
ready.
have some comments to make.
Okay.
I'd like, for the record, based on what Commissioner Pardo has said, the minutes to be read, because there's a lot of information going out that said $20 million, $20 million. I have the most parks in the city in District 5, and my parks, while I have done a pretty good job of restoration of parks, I don't know why it is, but the city of Miami has these assets and they don't take care of them until the playground equipment is just completely falling apart instead of just regular maintenance. So while you're concerned about a park that's coming online, I'm concerned about parks that I have. And I am not willing to relinquish not one penny of any money, but I want to make it clear on the record, because this is what I was told, and the reason why our residents don't trust us is because we may take one measure and then later, when they've forgotten, we do something else. Staff has advised me that on the minutes, it was never $20 million that was coming to parks. It was 12 and a half that was going,
Correct.
and then the rest was split up amongst the three. And I just want assurances that that is correct, and I understand it's in the minutes, but I'd like, someone to go through that, and that, yes, I will get for my parks the money that was intended for us to get, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the District 5 parks, and I cannot support this if I'm going to lose one penny. I might need 10 cents on my 1 penny back.
So, Madam Chair, this was debated on April 28th of 2022, about 2 years ago, and on page 72 of the minutes, which conclude on page 74, there's the recitation of how that is broken down. And it was $12.5 million that was allocated to that park, and the balance, which was $7.5 million, was allocated to 3 districts. 0 to District 4, $2.5 million to District 2, $2.5 million to District 3, and $2.5 million to District 5.
And I'm going to be looking for another $2.5 million for District 4.
Right, and I think that's the right thing to do, because that should have never happened to begin with. But it happened. So
I was punished, Mr. Mayor. I was punished.
You were punished. You were.
By your good friend. And I want to stress out that this was a discussion. We never voted on this. See, it was a discussion trying to how to divide the pie. You see, I take this part and you take the other part. Blah 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 blah. Manolo didn't vote for this. He doesn't deserve it. That's fine with me. I knew that there were going to be consequences. But as I stated before, if by doing what you're doing now, we are going back to the original question that was in the ballot, which I think that we owe them respect. We owe respect to the voters that read the question in the ballot and voted 60% in favor of it. Who are we to change it just because I won 2.5 million and the other commissioner won 2.5 million? The language stated clearly there were going to be $20 million for the creation of Freedom Park, 58 acres of park. And I respect that.
By the way, let me just add, like you, Chairwoman, that I have assurances that we will create a trust, because I am also worried, like you, that the money ends up. So that's why I'm going along, and I heard what you said, Mayor, but I'm going along under the circumstances that a trust will be created after we put this through to safeguard that money and make sure it goes to the maintenance and capital improvements to that park only. And one more thing, we're missing another 5. That's 2.5 has already been deposited, and that's for the Baywalk. I understand. Nobody spoke about that, but in reality, I think it's 25, not counting your 7 and you guys and the other, but just
7.5 million.
Yeah. So anyway.
2.5 for you.
Whenever you
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen.
So, do I have a motion?
Motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Chair. So Mayor Suarez did suggest an amendment. However, I need the mover to accept the amendment that was proffered by Mayor Suarez, and that's $7.5 million divided equally amongst districts 2, 3, and 5 to be done through a mid-year budget amendment.
No. So my amendment was amended, which is 2, 3, 5, and 4, $2.5 million, which is $10 million total, to be identified in the mid-year by the city manager to be brought to this commission.
And now,
I see a happy smile from Commissioner Reyes. I'm glad.
Well, what can I do? I was left out. I expected it, that I was going to be punished.
Commissioner Gabelli, you're the maker of the motion.
Yes, with the clear understanding that's apart from the 20 mil that's going there. That is not part of the
Correct.
20 mil.
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
So I have a motion and a second for RE 14 as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
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 No.
Passes 4-1.
4-1.
Can I just be recognized for point of privilege?
Please.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm still waiting for someone to bring me a sports deal where the city pays $0, gets over $2 billion in revenue, $20 million for the second largest park in its inventory, $5 million for a Baywalk, and now they're going to pay for the operation and maintenance that they weren't even required to do in the first place. So anyone who says that this is not a better deal or that this is some sort of a bait and switch, at the very best, they're misinformed. At the very worst, I won't even say what they are, because they're being disingenuous and fooling the public. And that, frankly, is sad. But unfortunately, it's oftentimes expected here in this place. And it's, I just wanted to clarify that because there has been, for whatever reason, every time we do an NMFP item, there's all these conspiracies and we're trying to benefit this person and that person. And, everyone comes out of the woodwork. What? Developers. Yeah, developers. And it's our property. We're getting the money into our property. This is I still haven't found a deal, and no one has shown me one, where a city is not just not giving any money, right? Most of the deals, Buffalo, I think, is getting $1 billion. Tennessee's getting over $1 billion. The Titans, the Buffalo Bills, the Los Angeles Raiders are getting over $1 billion. So I still haven't found one where the city's not giving anything and they're getting money. And yet, when we allocate our own funds to our own parks, we get criticized by people who say that it's a bad deal, which makes absolutely no sense because it doesn't even change the deal at all. We're actually getting an even better deal today. And we're finding the money that was deviated, in my opinion, improperly, but now has been restored properly. And we're also giving it all back to our residents. Plus, we're righting a wrong, which was that Commissioner Reyes' district was unfairly targeted and defunded. Thank you.
Madam Chair, real quick, 30 seconds. Mayor, I think what will say it very clearly and quick is that when the Miami Heat deal was done, they paid no property taxes. When the Marlins deal was done, they pay no property taxes.
And $400
When
million
the
subsidy.
Inter-America deal was done, Inter-Miami deal was done, they pay taxes. What more can I say?
Thank you.
Thank you. Right now, SR1, Commissioner Gabella, I think you had,
SR1, where are we?
SR1.
Chair is Commissioner Pardo.
Yeah.
Oh, Commissioner Pardo?
And I think Todd had my questions answered, which were, they mentioned a few of the committees. I wanted to make sure we talked about it in public. Overtown, the status of status of women, community relations, and these have all been inactive boards, correct?
Yes, sir.
So they've been inactive for a very, very, very long time.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the case for these folks that came during public comment and said they were interested in these issues, they can still come back and we can start one of these once there are people, actually interested in showing up and working on them.
Yes, sir. There may be a 2.0 version needed. Some of these boards were created to address 20th century issues. Now that we're in the 21st century, some of it may need to be updated. I'm just saying.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm done.
Mr. City Clerk, is one of the boards the Commission on the Status of Women and Quality of Life Committee?
Yes, ma'am.
That's one that's going to be taken away because I just appointed someone to that board.
There are still a number of vacancies and they have not met.
Since 2019.
Oh, okay, because a public commenter did come up and, so maybe we can revamp that board.
5 years. They haven't met.
5 years, okay.
And commissioners, full disclosure, it's not easy in this day and age to find board members. I mean, privacy is a major concern, I think, of most just citizens in general. You have financial disclosure, gift disclosure, sunshine law training. Now you can be held accountable to sunshine law violations. You have ethics training. You have employment restriction forms, residency requirement forms. So there's a lot involved, or there's a lot being asked, I think, from someone who just wants to serve on an advisory board when it comes to the number of disclosures that are required. So just making sure that the record's clear.
And the cost to maintain.
Yes, I'll let the city manager and the city attorney, explain, the resources.
One thing is for certain, I won't use that quote in a future PSA to recruit people for boards because Todd just gutted any future recruitment.
Now, I understand that, the boards that are proposed to be eliminated, but one resident did say that the Overtown Advisory Board is required by the CRA, and I'm not sure if that is the case or not. But if that
We could amend SR1 and just exclude that from the others.
Well, if that is the case, I would like to, I'm sorry, Mr.
I'll double check to make, I don't believe that's true, but we'll look
Okay.
into it and make sure that we're in compliance with the CRA requirements.
You're going to do that now? Because I know they haven't met for a number of years,
2018 was the last time they met.
2018. And
But again, they can be excluded from the others and it could always be revisited. So if that's something
okay,
that
so let's exclude.
Overtown Advisory Board.
Yes, please.
So what are we doing?
So
It'll be a motion as amended.
a motion as amended. Do I have
What
a
are we doing?
motion?
Are we abolishing or?
Some boards,
Okay.
yes, the ones that have not met for many, many
Okay,
years.
so motion.
So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.
Motion carries unanimously, which takes us to FR6. Chapter 38, abolish the Bayfront Park Management Trust.
So I'm against this.
Same.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
And by the way, one of the reasons is, I've been told by the administration, this is not a good idea to do. It's kind of like the same line that we've been talking about here with the Freedom Park, that board, with all its problems and, it shouldn't be now after many years, all of a sudden, you want to abolish the Bayfront Park Management. So I am against this.
I see that there's going to be a presentation.
No, not
Not,
for,
okay.
not for this.
Do you,
This is, but if you want, I could do a presentation. Frankly, I don't know why in the DIs, items that were carried over from the last meeting are put behind new items on the agenda, when we should always include the items that are carried over as the first items in the next agenda. And then new items should be the ones that come after. But look, this was an idea that I got from Commissioner Pardo.
No, that wasn't my idea.
No, yes, it was.
No.
Partial.
No, it was separating Maurice.
You had, that's right. You had.
Don't say what my ideas are,
You
please.
had, I said I got it from you.
You didn't.
You had Maurice Beret Park that you wanted to bring back to the city. But it didn't make sense whatsoever because Maurice Beret Park would be a financial burden to the city. It doesn't generate the money to maintain itself. We would be in the situation that we were looking at and we just discussed at Freedom Park. The only way that it would make sense would be by bringing both parks, the trust, into the city, into the Parks Department, but as a separate entity where you would separate its funding, its functions. But this is something that is entirely up to this board. If there's no appetite for it, I have no problems in tabling it. That's the will of this body.
Motion to deny.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to deny FR 6. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
I will then go along with it if there's no appetite for it.
Okay.
And so I did see Commissioner Reyes. I believe he voted aye, so it's unanimous 5-0.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
We lost him somehow, but
He's
there.
here. He's there, but not here.
Oh, okay.
Because
We
we
lost
Why don't you turn around and you take a good look at me?
They shut you off from our videos here, so I don't know what happened.
That's right.
Okay. Next item, DI 3.
Chair, DI2 is...
DI2, I'm sorry. DI 2 is in play.
Okay, motion. Go ahead.
Breathe.
Through the chair, Chief, thank you for coming back for the action plan that I asked you through this body. The Miami River is extremely important to our economy and to the enjoyment and peace of our residents. And I think you have something solid to lay a foundation to begin with it and see if it's going to be sufficient or we're going to have to keep adding.
So, good afternoon, Commissioners, Chair, Vice Chair. Manny Morales, Miami Police Department, 400 Northwest 2nd Avenue. The plan that we put forward that I kind of briefed everybody on the agenda briefing, I think it's sufficient for now. We're at 16 officers, 2 sergeants and 1 lieutenant as of today. At the end of the month, on February 25th, we'll add 2 more. So that will give me 7-day coverage from 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. on the river. And then it will give me 2 additional officers from 6 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So we will cover the bulk of the time. In addition to that, we've installed a camera. We're able to put a camera right by the icon on the Brickell side. that's aiming right at the mouth of the river. So we'll be able to monitor any traffic that's coming in or out, whether they're violating the idle zone or whether they're playing loud music. So we are able to have the officers, whether they're inside the river patrolling it closer to 12 and 17th Avenue, they'll be able to respond as well.
Chief, through the chair, is there a possibility that in that camera we could have some kind of lighting so that they could see it at night, that there is a camera, and hopefully there'll be a little more respect if they know they're being watched?
Absolutely, Vice Chair. We can add red and blue strobes to it so it can be visible and they can recognize it as a police camera. In addition to that, I believe 2 weeks ago we received our 11th boat. So we have 11 vessels at this time. We have 4 of the safe boats, 2 of the inner bay boats that are hardened, 2 contenders, and I want to say 2 flat water boats. So we got a good combination of different types of vessels that will allow us to go just about anywhere. So we should be good to go. Our performance has improved as well from last year. So we're making a lot more loud music stops, which has been the synonymous complaint throughout the river. So we believe that with the changes and the addition, we should be hitting the mark and getting some folks a little bit of relief, the ones that are being impacted on the river, while still respecting voters' rights. I don't know if you saw it, but we'll be talking with legal about some of the proposals that the state has with the right to vote, which limits some of our ability to do the safety inspections. I don't know if you guys saw, Governor DeSantis did approve some measures that he's putting forward. So we'll see how that impacts our ability to enforce, but regardless of what it is, we'll ensure that the river is.
Can you publicly tell us what that is that the governor put forth?
I know that it does impose some limits on our ability to make a maritime vessel stop for the sake of a safety inspection, which is quite a few of our interactions, our safety inspections, whether you have fire extinguisher, whether you have enough life vest on board. In lieu of that, there will be, from what I understand, a decal that's affixed to the vessel that annotates whether the occupants and the vessel have gone through the inspection cycle and are in compliance with the maritime laws. So we'll see how that kind of impacts us. I haven't looked at the whole breadth of the legislature, but we'll brief with our legal eagles.
I think it, from what I see, a proposed change would stop boat inspections without suspicion, so you would need an elevated reason to stop the vessel versus just stopping the vessel to perform a safety check to make sure they have all their equipment. It's a proposed revision, so it's just words now, but it's probably working through the legislature.
And that wouldn't stop us from approaching a vessel that's violating the noise ordinance or the speed ordinance. So we should be able to still do some enhanced enforcement on the river. So.
This is kind of like the seatbelt, that you could stop somebody for lack of wearing a seatbelt, and now in this one you're taking it off.
When it moved to a primary violation that we could stop it, and it had to be a secondary before, now it's a primary, yes.
But I didn't get that part. How is it that you're going to guarantee, or not guarantee, but how is it that you're going to be a safety issue to make sure that you got flares, lifesavers, how are we going to address that?
I believe that the legislature proposes that the vessel have a sticker that says that they're in compliance.
So
there'll be a decal on the vessel next to a hull number that annotates whether you've been through the safety inspection.
So it's going to be like an inspection?
Like the old inspection stickers that you used to get here when you got your muffler and your exhaust system checked and your headlights, and more or less.
Thank you, Chief. Anything else from anyone else?
Nope. I appreciate how quickly you attended to this request, Chief.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I'd like to ask you is if once it's fully implemented, if you could give us weekly reports on what actions, what tickets are being issued, what action is taken. Tuesdays would be good, so this way you could bring it up on Sunday and it give it to you Monday to do it.
We can include that on our weekly Tuesday reports, along with the heat numbers and the traffic enforcement numbers that we already provide. some of the districts. If there's any other information that you would like on a weekly report, please just let me know, and we'll make sure that we address that and get that information out to each of the district offices. We'll include that.
One quick question.
Sir.
Did you figure out the docking for that site, or you're still looking for?
We have a couple of locations that we're working on.
Okay.
We're going to be working with Dream to make sure that we get them.
Thank you very much. You know, you can count on us to continue looking, and really, you've been a great partner, especially with everything dealing with the river. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate yours.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Good job.
DI 3. Okay, I'll start with DI 3. As a courtesy to Commissioner Pardo, when he had his accident, we deferred all chair issues to the March agenda. I don't like piecemealing. We're taking out one, but this is a discussion item, so we're going to hear. But I just wanted to say that that's my position. We are going to take up all the chairmanships in March. We had all agreed to it. Commissioner Reyes wasn't here that day. Commissioner Pardo wasn't here, and we agreed to take up the chairmanships in March. All of them. I'm not clear what spurred this on, that it has to be taken up today versus when we take them all up in March. But it's a discussion item, so let's move forward with discussing.
I'm calling for a vote. I'm calling for a vote, Madam Chair.
Okay. Well,
After we discuss
after
it.
you discuss, in
Of
your
course.
discussion, okay.
Because all sides need to.
Yes,
say their-
everybody.
their side.
You want to go?
No, you guys, I'm going to go last.
Well,
You're
I'll go.
You're the one that put this item
Yes,
up.
I did.
You
Yes, I
should
did.
start,
Okay,
with
I'll go
it.
first. I will go first.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why I did it. Number one, as I remember last year, okay, there have been, as you know, there have been a lot of issues with the Bayfront Trust since I got here, and before that, mainly having to do with you and the Bayfront Trust. Okay?
Issues that have been created, sir.
No. I'm sorry?
Wait, don't interrupt. Let
All
him
right, Madam
speak.
Chair.
No,
Right.
what did
Go
you say,
ahead.
Garoyo? I'm sorry.
I said issues that have been created.
Okay, let me get to that. And listen, I understand that in these kind of situations, there's two sides to the story. I wasn't there, and I don't know what happened or didn't happen. Okay, and I can tell you that I know you've done some good things in the park. I'm not one of those that's going to tell you, oh, everything that you did is bad in the park. Okay, but here's the thing, you know, this is getting out of hand. You know, and listen, you can't tell me that I don't try to be fair, because, for example, the gym equipment, I started out voting out with him. And then you took it to a referendum, and when the people spoke, I said, you know what, now I'm with you. And I helped you open the gym equipment because I thought enough is enough, and we had beaten that horse to death. So I think I'm fair with all sides, no matter what our differences here, there are here. Sometimes I try to, you know, be professional and do the business at hand. Last year, you know, with all these issues, you proffered, you know, you said, I'm going to step down in January. That's what you said. I didn't say that. He didn't say that. You said that, okay? And I took you at your word. And what I said to myself was, you know, these things are happening. I'm not there. You know, I don't know if it's true or not true or whatever. You know, but you know what? Let him finish his thing. He proffered that he was going to be stepping down in January, you know, and let him do his Christmas party, whatever he does. And then in January, somebody else will take over. That's the impression that you gave, you know. And then when you gave that impression, I said, and then you didn't do it, I said to myself, you know, the problem is going to be you're turned out in November, like the law says, so you're not going to be there anymore in November, at least as a commissioner, okay? If somebody were to take that board over November or October, it's not fair to the person that's taking that board over because, you know, you've been there for 8 years. I haven't been there for one iota, you know? And so whoever takes it over, whether it be me, him, her, whoever, okay, I think it wouldn't be fair for that person. I'm trying to do this as diplomatically as I can. I am not doing this out of spite with you or the differences that we have had. That I can assure you. I am not here to tear your projects down, what you have. That isn't me, okay? I try to keep away from that. Sometimes we fall into that and we shouldn't be falling into that. I've said many times before to the Herald and to everybody else, sometimes I vote with you and they've accused me. Now you're aligned with Carollo. Sometimes I vote with you. And you go, and I'm aligned now with Pardo. No, I vote for the project. I vote for the merits. And if you happen to be there, I'm going to vote with you, sir. And if you happen to be there because it's good, I'm going to vote for you. And when my priorities for my district, for my residents don't align, then I won't be voting with you guys. You know, but nobody can accuse me that I'm taking sides or I'm in this gang over here or that over there. No, that isn't me. And I'm not doing this because of that. But I think we need to end this. Also, in November, when you are termed out as commissioner, okay, as commissioner, you know, again, it wouldn't be fair for the person taking over. Number two, okay, you have a budget, I understand a budget that you have to turn in by April, or should be turned in by April, okay? And wouldn't be fair also, you know, to pick a chairman after that. I think it should be done before, you know, and then after all, in January is when we picked the boards. I think last June you were supposed to be ratified, we kept going, you know, and I didn't make it personal, man. I mean, I heard what everybody had to say. I'm a commissioner elected by the people that I represent, District 1, and I listen to everybody, you know, but I think, you know, enough is enough, you know, with all due respect, and you did proffer that you were going to, you know, step down, so let somebody else take over, you know, and listen, I realize if him, me, or whoever it is, if the minute I don't do something, okay, that some of these people are not in agreement with, I'm going to have a problem. I realize that. I'm under no illusion here. If I were to be picked as the chairman, I'm under no illusion here, okay? Because you can't, you know, please everybody all the time, like the saying goes, okay? But, you know, this needs to be addressed. And yes, I think there's an urgency to get it done now. Because I remember a very short story when the gym equipment and the last vote that you got mad at your fellow commissioner because you thought he was delaying that vote so you can have your back equipment on. And I voted for you so you can have your equipment back. Well, this is the same thing that you're doing to us now. You said in January you're stepping down, and now you want to prolong it. And that's what we're saying. No, we're not going to do that. You're a man of your word. Keep your word, okay? And I can tell you, the only thing I can tell you that if I am elected to be that chairperson, I am not out here to destroy your work. And I believe that some of your work has been good. Let me just tell you that, okay? I try to be even-handed. And I'll end it with that, and you, now it's...
Commissioner Reyes?
We can't hear him.
We can't hear you.
I agree with Commissioner Gabela and everybody does, that it was Commissioner Carollo made a commitment to step down in January. But I think it's about time do we have a change of guard, because this is going out of hand. We have a scandal after another scandal and a scandal, and I think it is about time that we stop it, and if we don't get any more black eyes, and whoever will be selected will be selected. Commissioner Carollo has done an excellent job. That fountain, it is fantastic. The park has keep it pristine, and all the art that he has brought to the park, it is fantastic. But there is a time that for change, and I think this is the time for change. And I will agree that we make some changes in the Bayfront Park Trust.
Should we call the question?
Vice Chair?
Let Mr. Pardo speak.
Commissioner Pardo?
I also want to add that I'm not opposed to the projects that you've been working on or where you've been successful. But District 2 represents the residents that are complaining and that don't seem to come to any resolution. If I were to say there was one problem at Bayfront Park Trust, it's that. The division between the trust and the residents. Commissioner Gabela has shown an ability to listen and to act based on the information he's getting. That would be very important to me, and I would certainly support you in that role. Probably the biggest thing I had the problem with were the audited statements, the last two sets of audited statements. I mentioned that here on the dais previously. They both had two deficiencies that I consider as a financial person very important. One was the inability to reconcile your bank statement, and the other one was the inability to be able to prove who was approving disbursements. That's huge when you're talking about cash that is $10, $16 million, $18 million in cash. So we actually had the conversation with the auditors in our office. And the auditors said, listen, all good points. We haven't been able to clear those deficiencies, but there's been a constant turnover in executive directors. And I think, just given the constant turnover, given the issues that are already happening, given the way the residents feel in this district, our office does not stop dealing with this issue. And I've said it on the dais before. Nothing goes away. You said, oh, with the gym equipment, this is all going to go away. No, it didn't go away. A new one came in, or a list of them came in. So, I'm in agreement with my colleagues, and I would move to have Commissioner Gabella to chair the Bayfront Park Trust.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
I do have a right to speak, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I have a motion and a second, and Commissioner Carollo is going to speak now.
If you could hold on for a minute. Larry Springs here.
Yes. Larry Spring, Chief Financial Officer.
Yeah, let me begin by having you answer one area that I do want to focus on. The financial statements from Bayfront Park, how many times do they get audited and by whom?
The Bayfront Park Management Trust gets audited annually. They get a financial audit annually every year.
The park itself gets a financial audit every
Yes.
year, okay? And then once we give it to the city to get another financial audit,
It is incorporated into the city's financial statement audit as well.
so
that
once it gets to the city, I am correct in saying that incorporated,
it's incorporated, yes.
it gets a second financial audit. And
Well,
this is what,
can I make a very
yes.
nuanced point? It is incorporated into the city's financial statement audit, and our auditor, the city's financial statement auditor, relies on the opinion provided by the Bayfront Management Trust audit, but they still sign both collectively. Yes.
but nevertheless, Bayfront Park is audited before it gets to the city, and then you have an overall audit
Sign off.
based on that.
Yes.
And if there would be any questions on the Bayfront Park audit, the city's auditor would certainly ask them.
They would ask again, yes.
This was an email sent from Jose Suarez on November 25th to my chief of staff to be given to me that, according to him, have been sent to Commissioner Pardo in answering Commissioner Pardo's questions back in the October meeting. And it says, deficiencies in 2022 and 2023 financial statements found in journal entries and bank reconciliation. These are merely issues that should be improved upon and not a finding of wrongdoing, etc. Based upon what you have seen from the Bayfront Trust. Is this an accurate statement or not?
Well, having read the opinion of the auditors, they have identified, I'll call them mistakes or
And serious
things.
deficiencies as well.
Well,
All minor, not what he's trying to make it, that there was all this stuff there.
I'll answer. I'll answer both. They've identified process and issues that they've denoted in the management letter comments as things that need to be addressed, but they did not rise to the level that it required the auditors to issue a modified opinion, which means the financial statements that are attached to that opinion are fairly present the financial position of the Bayfront Management Trust. So it's what is denoted as a clean audit.
Okay.
But with a clean audit, you can still have management letter comments say, clean this process up, reconsider doing this, et cetera, et cetera.
So then, Mr. Suarez was correct in what he wrote in November 25th, unlike what you read in the lawsuit, that there was no finding of wrongdoing by the auditors.
That is technically correct.
Okay. Now, let me go back. Gentlemen, I have no illusion of reality. I've always been a realist. And if something that I do know is how to count. And I've always counted even before I came into this meeting today. One of the worst things in life is to succeed so much that you have to be killed at the end for succeeding so much. Envy is one of the worst things that a human being could have because it eats you up from the inside. But at the same time, I ask this. Other boards, don't they have the same criteria that before someone ends a board, they should be gracious enough to leave beforehand to try to help someone else ahead, like I stated that I would be willing to do coming this year? Now, I hear all of a sudden scandals, black eyes, everything else. The worst, lowest accusations that could be launched against individuals been launched against myself and my wife. In her case, because she's married to me and she volunteers for the city. In my case, because they haven't been able to beat me in 2 elections and a recall, and they're frustrated every time they go at me. And I made it clear that I wasn't going to bow down and roll over and give any bar owners tens of millions of dollars for the latest of the same type of lawsuits that they have against the city. Commissioner Gavella.
Yes, sir.
What no one has asked me is, before you went to the radio, before you went to the Herald, and made some pretty strong statements against a guy that was really your biggest supporter here and Alapata's biggest supporter, and you went blasting without coming to this board to see what my intentions were.
But you made it clear you weren't stepping down.
Well, I'm a man of my words. But you should also be a man of your word. On the last commission meeting that we had, when you already knew this lawsuit. It had been filed 2 days before. They had a press conference before we came to this meeting. They had the same characters that you have here come and talk about it and scream at me about it here. Mr. Pardo, if you want to say something to Commissioner
You're
Gavella,
saying call the
please say it in
question.
the
You know
mic.
what? I'm going to say call the question too. Let's call the
Okay,
question.
so
No,
you
no,
want to have a kangaroo?
No,
I
stop
don't.
it, stop
But
it,
you're
stop
getting
it.
into
I
stuff.
You
allow
want to have
everybody
a
to
kangaroo
speak.
here?
Commissioner,
You
You
don't
scared
raise
to hear
your,
the truth?
Commissioner,
Yeah, go ahead.
you don't have to raise
Did I
your
interrupt
voice.
you? I didn't interrupt you.
But you're
I'm not-
interrupting him now. Allow him to speak. I allowed you to
But I
speak.
have the
Commissioner
right, I
Pardo
have the
still
right to
wants
call the question.
You have,
I have
when
the
he
right to call the
finishes,
question.
when he
For Robert's
finishes,
rules, okay,
when
let-
he
let him finish.
finishes.
I'm not
Go ahead.
scared
Okay,
of what
okay.
he's about
Listen.
to say. He can finish
Stop,
all day long. Keep going.
Stop. When he finishes, you can call a question.
No, when he finishes, I'm going to answer to what he's
You
saying,
can-
and then I'll
yes,
call the question.
You can
that's fine.
respond to what he says when he finishes, but
Absolutely.
let's all.
Nobody's
We
never
don't have to
told
raise
anything.
our voices, and we don't have to talk over each other. He was speaking. I allowed you to speak. Let him finish, and then I believe Commissioner Pardo wanted to say something. No, you're finished. Okay.
Thank you,
All right.
Chairwoman. If I'm going to be thrown to the dirt for so-called colleagues who try to humiliate me for only giving my best and everything that I have to this city and to this trust, then I better be given the right to answer. Commissioner Gavella,
Yes, sir.
I had every intention, this is why I made sure that the fountain will be done by the end of the year. This is why I made sure that we would have the best New Year's Eve celebration that we could possibly have. I had every intention to do what I said that I was going to do. However, it was you that were here and Mr. Pardo by Zoom that voted with the other two that were here, one of them being myself, to bring all the boards to the March 13th meeting. You voted for that. I took you on your word, Commissioner
And
Gavella.
you know, and I reconsidered, like I have the right to do, like you accused him one day when he wasn't here for the
Listen, I'm
referendum.
speaking now.
Well, and I'm answering because
No, when he
answer
finishes,
what
Here's
you
the
all
problem.
stop screaming at each other.
I'm
Stop
not screaming.
at each
I'm not
other.
screaming.
Let
I am
him
not
finish,
screaming for the
but let
record.
him finish.
No,
Let
but
him
he's going to
finish.
say
When
10
he
things
finishes,
that.
when
Can I
he
just
fin-
say he's going to say 10 things at me, and then I got to write it down because
Okay,
he talks a lot.
let's
a lot.
let him finish.
They wanted
See, he was screaming.
Lower
He
lower
was
your
screaming.
voice.
No.
You know what?
See, he was
I have to
screaming.
go to the bathroom. The meeting is in recess. 2025 is now resumed. Commissioner Carollo, I think you were speaking.
I said that I hope we still have some rules here that people have a right to defend themselves. Let's get to the bottom line how all this scandal, this black eyes started. That didn't bother Mr. Pardo nor Mr. Gabella when they voted at the last meeting to bring this whole back to March 13th. Where I would have gladly said at that meeting that I didn't want Bayfront Park again, that I want to be taken out of being the acting chairman of Midtown, like I had said before. There was an email that was sent by the assistant to Commissioner Pardo directly to the police chief. Not to the manager, like the charter would say, but to the police chief. Where the subject was a case number that he had already. And he could have only have had it in two ways. Either someone in the police department would have given it to them, but that didn't happen because I asked for a public records request, so everyone that had gone through a police computer to have searched for that case number, and nobody did. So it was clear that that could have only come either directly or indirectly from Mr. Jose Suarez. The email was asking for a copy of the report and additional information as to what happened. Soon after, there was a second, after several other emails, there was an additional email from Mr. McKnight to the police chief again, saying, per the commissioner's request, we would like to call for a formal investigation. Would like to call. That in the English language means I want you, as close that you could get to ordering without saying I'm ordering an investigation through internal affairs of the reference case and inventory of all materials held in property. We have received complaints and questions regarding potential malfeasance and nefarious activities surrounding the city board entry relating to the acquisition of these supplies. They're talking about medical supplies. Well, the Police Internal Affairs Unit, in their final report dated 12/12/24, stated that on October 22nd, 24, Sergeant Shirley Gust of the Internal Affairs Section emailed Mr. McKnight to obtain a sworn audio recording statement to clarify the complaint. Mr. McKnight replied in the email on October 26, saying, 2 days later, our office received calls, and we have been told in person at community meetings by residents that have questions surrounding the Bayfront Trust acquisition of veterinarian supplies. Mr. McKnight also replied with a list of questions that the commissioner wanted to have the internal affairs asked of employees of the park. So not only were they calling and demanding the investigation, but they already had the questions written out for our police department. And this is all behind the city manager's back, going directly to the police chief. Again on October 31st, 2024, Sergeant August again emailed Mr. McKnight to see his availability to obtain a sworn audio recorded statement of his complaint to no avail. He advised that he had no information in addition to the anonymous complaints received by the District 2 office. This started when someone that Mr. Pardo was going to originally hire as chief of staff and had been in constant communications with him since he was hired by us, Mr. Suarez, called the police chief so that police officers could come to the Bayfront Trust, and they came at 8:30 at night or so, after hours, to take medical supplies that had been left in a veterinarian truck that we, the trust, had approved as a board, following all the criteria that the city had. The manager was aware of it. In fact, they sent someone from the motor pool to check it out. They sent a veterinarian to check the equipment out because it was just more than a veterinarian truck. It was a full truck to be able to operate. So that the citizens and residents of Miami that cannot afford to pay for vaccines, that cannot afford to pay for spading or neutering their dogs or cats, could have a free service from the city through the trust. The date that Mr. Suarez asked the police to come in because he didn't feel comfortable with his medical supplies, and he claimed he had not gone through any of the boxes, so he didn't know what was in it, was April 30th. The report from that day states non-criminal information, meaning non-criminal report, and it says closed on that same date. This is only open because Mr. Pardo abused his power, abused his office by doing what the charter says he cannot do, going directly to the police chief, calling for an investigation of the trust, and falsely claiming that he had anonymous people calling, people that went up to them in community meetings on this. The invoice here, when the Petmobile was bought, clearly states not included in the sale were pharmaceuticals. Not included. The lady, the vet that sold this to the trust, had moved to Europe. She wasn't able to sell vet supplies that were within the truck, and she left them there. When the truck was driven to the trust, we found them. And an inventory was made of those supplies that proved even more that no one in the trust, no employee had any intent of any wrongdoing with any medication that was there. The final close-up report on December 12, 24, finishes by saying, Ms. Shelton, who works for the police department in the property room, stated she was present at the property room when this incident happened, when the property was destroyed, and recalled destroying a lot of items by hand. She stated a lot of items were veterinary equipment and that every item was destroyed one by one. She stated most of the items destroyed were new and included dog tags, needles, glass, and plastic vials. Ms. Shelton stated all the vials were discarded and not smashed because they were empty glass. She stated had any of the vials contained narcotics or liquid, the procedure would have been to contact her immediate supervisor, Mr. Doehead, and inform him of such. Ms. Shelton stated that she does not recall how many vials were discarded. However, reassured that all the vials were empty and did not include any liquid and or narcotics. She stated every item in this incident was destroyed and it was documented in the system once the destruction was completed. On November 20th, 2024, Sergeant Alexis Valdez emailed Ms. Stephanie de la Cruz and requested her to contact him. Ms. de la Cruz was the veterinarian that sold the Vetmobile to the trust. Ms. de la Cruz...
Excuse me, Ms. Commissioner. I've been advised by the city attorney that some of what you're saying is part of litigation, and they don't necessarily want us discussing that ongoing litigation.
Well, this is public record that I'm reading from. Right here. Ms. de la Cruz stated that no pharmaceuticals and or medicine was included in the sale. She stated that she provided within the Vetmobile several vials. However, reiterated that all the vials were empty. The last sentence of the report states, no evidence of a crime or intent to commit a crime was discovered during this investigation. As such, this case is now closed and will be classified as an internal affairs information-only case. Now, I've gone through that area, but let me get to the bottom. And gentlemen, let me be very clear. You could get a pound of flesh today, but the laughing is not going to go for months and months like you think. And as I stated last year, as I've stated now, it was my full intent. Everything that I did was to finish with the trust at the end of last year, but it was these two gentlemen that voted here to bring everything up again on March 13th. And then, immediately after that, Mr. Gabela goes on a radio program, goes to the Herald, trying to put my face into the dirt and to try to humiliate me. I took him at his word for March the 13th.
Change my
Now,
mind.
let me
Call the question.
get to the bottom line of
Call the
why
question. 10 minutes.
Mr. Gabela is doing this. It's not for all the reasons that he said. He voted at the last meeting to bring it to March the 13th. But his handlers got a hold of him right away, and were the ones that told him what to do. Number one, if the video cameras that we have here in the audience, behind the lady in the orange outfit, the gentleman that's looking down with the glasses, if you could put the cameras to him. That's Manuel Priegues. Now, why would Mr. Manuel Priegues be one of a handful of people that's here tonight so late? Well, he's here to make sure that they go after me. And why does he want me out of the trust? Well, here he represents that he signed up in May 13th of the last year to be a lobbyist for a corporation called Loud and Live. For what? For the RFP for the Miami Marine Stadium that will be coming in the near future. And what does this have to do with Bayfront Park? Well, nothing. Well, I'm going to tell you, and you know well what it's got to do. This is why you got Mr. Gavella to move forward on this.
Listen, my
Out
only,
in live,
my only
listen,
handler,
let me finish.
my only handler
Let
is my
me
wife.
finish.
Okay,
That's who
okay.
handles
You're
me.
not a tough
Listen,
guy.
listen.
No, I'm not.
Let me
no,
finish.
Not
Hold on,
Listen, we've
hold
been
on.
at this for 12 minutes.
No.
Call
Hold on,
the
hold
question.
on.
All of you had
Call the
more time than I
question.
did.
Okay.
Hold on.
It's
See,
3
now
on
he's
1,
raising his
so I
voice
get
again.
equal time and more.
Point of order. You're raising your voice. I'm talking
Thank you.
normally.
Point
Okay.
of order.
The only person that handles me is my wife, for the record. Okay. And I'd like
Yeah.
to call the question. You've been at
No,
this, and
no,
we're never
listen,
going to
you
stop.
keep
We're going to get out of
interrupting
here.
me, interrupting me.
Not interrupting. I heard you for
Yeah.
12 minutes.
Well,
So
this
when?
is fine. Then you're going to hear the last
It's
part,
been
okay?
called.
Commissioner,
Yes, ma'am.
no, I was speaking to him. I'm looking in this direction. Commissioner, 2 of the colleagues have called for question. The clerk has,
Chairman,
just let me finish.
Chairman,
Let
I
me-
need to
let
finish
me-
this.
Let me finish.
Why are they so afraid of what I'm going to say?
Let me finish what I was going to say. The clerk has advised me that when members of the body have called for question, that I should be wrapping up. You've spoken, so we're going to let you wrap up what you have to say. I'm not stopping you from saying what you have to say, but there have been call for questions, and it is appropriate
Okay, well,
for me to
then let me
respond.
wrap
Go-
up in
go
a
right
few
ahead.
minutes.
Go right ahead.
Okay?
Go ahead.
Loud and live, through the representative, Tony Arbeyu, that the VIP, the food, alcohol for the New Year's Eves for 3 years. And how much have they paid the trust in 3 years? 0. Not a penny. When I went to Mr. Suarez so he could finish what the previous executive director has started in trying to collect from him, he was appalled. He went at them with the assistant attorney that we had there. They claim that they forgot, but they wanted to pay. And then finally, after 3 years, they were saying only $50,000, which Mr. Suarez felt like I did at the time anyway, that it wasn't enough, that we should take them out of being able to bid, be involved in anything with the city of Miami because of what happened there. 3 years they didn't pay. All of a sudden, it appears someone got a hold of Mr. Suarez and he didn't want to talk about that anymore. Well, I'm going to tell you why, because Mr. Priegas wants Mr. Gavella there as chairman so he could bring Loud and Live to run New Year's, to bring that Christmas Wonderland in Tropical Park, something like that, to Bayfront Park also, so they could push the firm that we have there handling concerts in the big concert area that we have there out, and that they can control all concerts, who goes in and out of Bayfront Park. But beyond that, why did Mr. Suarez sue? Well, Mr. Suarez sued because they went and got a hold of him and offered Mr. Fuller and Mr. Pinilla's attorney. And what is Mr. Gavella going to do when he gets there? He's going to tell the insurance company that, hey, he wants this to be settled right away so Suarez gets the money and so on, and we don't get to go to court and throw it out in this.
Are we wrapping up?
Yeah.
Listen.
And
He's
last but
accusing
not
me.
least,
Look, I mean, look, I called the
Last
question.
but not
How many
least.
times do I have to
to
call the
speak when
question?
he finishes. He
But
said
when's he
last
gonna
but not
finish?
least. He said
When,
last.
tomorrow we're gonna
Last
He
finish?
but
said
not
last but
least.
not least.
He's accusing me.
Yeah,
I should
I'm
be
going to
allowed
allow you
to
to. I'm
answer
going to
that.
allow you to
Okay.
answer him.
last but not least, both of these gentlemen, his 60th birthday party in Pardo at Ball and Chain, campaign events at Ball and Chain, both of them through PACs that they claim that we don't take money, getting monies from the firms from these people. That's the other reason they're coming at me, because I told, through my attorneys, to their attorney, that I would not vote to give them a penny here in the case that they have It's the same case that was against me, and it's going to be thrown out against everybody in the city that they've sued, and the city of Miami too. And they want these two guys in the shade meeting that we're supposed to have today to start the wheels so we could pay him millions of dollars, and they would leave me alone if I would go along with it. How nice. These are the reasons why they did this, because it was clear I was going to leave the Bayfront Park Trust. Frankly, I don't have the time for that any longer. And they didn't want me to leave with my head up. They wanted to see how they could drag me through the mud, insult me, and create doubt on me.
Call the question.
My dear friend Manolo,
4 times.
you were part of the Fridays to La Habana. You and your wife went there scores of times. Scores of times. Do you really think that I or my wife were taking kickbacks from artists that appear there? Did any artist ever say anything to you? Anybody? And this is part of the lies.
Commissioner, we have to wrap it up now. Thank you.
Let me
Commissioner Cabell-
answer
sorry,
the
let me-
question. No,
Call the question.
nobody has
Commissioner
ever
Reyes
come
is
to me.
speaking.
Call the question.
Commissioner Reyes is speaking.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Claiming
Commissioner. I didn't hear
are
you. I
taking
apologize.
Any money or your wife, my position is that it is time for a change. And that's it.
Call the question.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
No, for the reasons that I stated last. I don't want to be part of it, but this gentleman is going in there not for the right reasons. Everything that's wrong, he's going in there for.
Motion passes. The last thing.
Sorry, Chair, is that 4-1?
3-2.
3-2.
If I could make an additional.
You see, he keeps talking, and I haven't talked yet. Let me know when you're done,
What,
so
do
then I
you
can
wanna-
answer.
Just this
Okay.
is real
No,
quick.
let me know.
I'd like a motion. to
No,
make
we took a
anybody-
motion already. We took a
Here-
motion
here's-
already, and
here's
it
the
passed.
motion.
Period, end of
Hold
story.
on,
We
hold
took a
on.
motion.
Stop
Don't
it,
start with
stop
that
it.
I don't
business.
want.
Stop,
I don't want
stop,
to be
stop.
chairman of the Midtown board.
We're not taking up
Take
Midtown.
that too if you want.
Midtown is not on the agenda right now.
Well,
Midtown
I
is
want
not-
out of that.
Commissioner, we have PZ6 is, you were sponsoring that, PZ6? We didn't take it up before lunch because you weren't here.
Chairman, if we could defer that for the next meeting.
Okay, can I have a motion to defer?
motion.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Will, it's deferred until February 27th. And the last item is the Bayfront Park Management Trust New Year's Eve 2024 and end of year discussions.
Okay. 5 minutes.
5
That's all.
minutes. Okay, it's a
Can,
discussion
you
item.
get the-
Notice that he continues, and I haven't answered him
Do you-
back, and then when I do
But-
say something, then I'm accused that I'm screaming.
Do you want-
He
do-
accused me
do-
of serious allegations.
Do you want to be
which are-
recognized?
Sorry?
If you'd like to be recognized, I thought you didn't want to say
Ye-
anything
Yes,
else
I
because you
do.
called the question.
We've taken our vote. I'd like to answer
Okay.
all the
you
allegations,
are
part of the allegations that he's
You are
made.
recognized. You are recognized,
Okay.
sir.
So, with all due respect, okay, I have no idea what the hell he's talking about, okay?
Oh, sure.
Period, end of story. That man over there, Manny Priegas, okay, what you're talking about, never once, let me
Excuse me,
finish.
Chairwoman.
There he goes again.
Can that clown there that's
There he
screaming
goes
loud
again.
be shut down or get him out of here?
Get him out of here, what? What have they done?
This
I'm the
one
one
right
talking.
here,
I'm the one talking.
he's laughing out loud. Nobody's supposed to do that here.
Let me, look, Commissioner, okay, let me say this to you as politely as I can with all the stuff that you said about me, okay? Never once have him and that man discussed what you're talking about. I don't know about the rest, but him and I,
Sure.
not once.
Yeah,
Let me tell you that.
Sure.
Not once, okay? And, sure. And on top of that, okay, you, okay, I think, okay, there's only one word to say this, and I'm going to end it here. Your problem is that you're like Maduro. You don't want to leave. You know, that's all I get to say to you. I'm done. That's it. I'll end it there. I don't want more trouble. I'm done.
Okay.
Well,
the last thing.
My problem
the last
is I'm
thing-
not a thug or a criminal.
the
That's
last,
what my problem
the
is.
The last thing is the DI5, Do you have a presentation? Do you want to defer that, or do you want to go? That's the last thing on the agenda. Hold on, Todd.
DI 6, 7, and 8 are also still in play.
Well, I
have a motion.
Excuse me, DI 5 is the one we're waiting for. It's 5 minutes.
Yes.
Under 5 minutes.
Hold on. Do I have a motion to defer DI 6, 7, and 8?
Yes.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll
Aye.
defer that to the next commission meeting, February 27th.
Understood.
Okay, go ahead.
Se burlarán de mí que nadie sepa mi sufrir.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. At this time, the City of Miami Commission meeting for February 13th, 2025 is now concluded. Thank you all for coming.